Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase might not just be some of the stupidest people in MLB history, in sports history, but human history. That's right. We got a real doozy of an episode here for you because if you didn't see during the Browns and Jets game because you were putting yourself through that, like my fellow co host who isn't here because he's sick, shout out to you, Erik, and myself were, Emmanuel Clase, Luis Ortiz have been indicted for their pitch rigging scheme by the Department of Justice. So there's a lot of storylines, a lot of things floating out there. But the main piece of context that we have right now is a 23-page paper from the Department of Justice that yours truly, my name is Noah, by the way. If you haven't watched the show before, welcome into At the Office. We do Cleveland sports content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, goes up at 10 a.m. every morning. I read every single page of this 23-page indictment on both of these pitchers. And when I tell you it is some of the sloppiest, dumbest, craziest sports content I've ever wrote in terms of obviously the bad side of sports, the illegal side of sports, people doing wrong things, such as former athletes and whatnot. This has been absolutely absurd. And from all things that I've read, and assuming when the Department of Justice comes at you for something, they have a pretty damn good case on you. Uh, they're guilty. But according to both of the lawyers, both of the attorneys for Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, they are not. Quote from Luis Ortiz's attorney that came out Sunday after he was arrested for this whole scheme. Luis Ortiz is innocent of the charges related to the two pitches he threw. He has never and would never improperly influence a game, not for anyone and not for anything. He continues to talk about Luis's competitive drive and whatnot and how he is going to clear his name. Clase's attorney, very much short, to the point, sweet, simple. Emmanuel Clase has devoted his life to baseball and doing everything in his power to help his team win. Emmanuel is innocent of all charges and looks forward to clearing his name in court. We're going to get into these 23-page papers, but I want to play a video clip for you first. And it's not even of the bad pitches. We'll play that too. But it's just of Luis Ortiz leaving the courtroom after his hearing Monday afternoon, after he posted his $500,000 bail to, not have to sit in a jail cell. Take a look.
Mr. Ortiz, any comment at all? We just wrote some pitches. Luis, any comment?
Now, I try my damnedest to not be a judgmental person, but does he not look guilty in the stance, in the lack of wanting to show his face after you have a big statement of I'm out here to clear my name? I don't expect him to say anything. It's just the stance. It's just how he's walking out. It makes me feel like he knows he's guilty because he's guilty. The court papers, the DOJ indictment says it clear as day. I'm gonna run you through some of the background of everything that is going on here, the players that are involved, meaning like all of the parties involved, not just Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase. There's no other guardians involved, at least hopefully there's no other guardians involved. Well, I show you see some of the pitches that were cause of concern, to say a little bit of the very least. So there's three players at play on top of Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. There are two individuals, genderless individuals. They didn't state who they are in the paperwork that are in the Dominican Republic, as well as one person who is boots on the grounds in the state of New York, I believe in New York City. So these are all the people that are working together to scheme, to converse about these pitches. For those who also don't know, there are prop bets out there where you can bet on if a pitcher is going to throw a ball or a strike, if they're going to throw over or under a certain amount of speed, and you're basically betting on which pitch a pitcher, especially like Emmanuel Clase, who only had two in his repertoire, is going to throw based on the speed, of course. So they being Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, would throw pitches that would A, always hit the under on the speed, typically, and always be a ball. So if you could see again, I'll throw up the bad pitches. This Luis Ortiz one is hilarious to me, but they all look like that, where they are completely wild, out of the zone, and just hit very far in front of the plate. It's really funny that you think you're going to get away with it when it is this blatantly obvious. And you'll see how much more blatantly obvious it is in some of the messages, the texts, the stuff that is going on in this whole situation. So I'm going to pull up a couple pages from this DOJ document that I read. This one was the one that went around social media the most, and it is basically Class A and Better One, who is the main individual, being in on rigging these bets. Class A was buying this person tickets to go to Guardians games. He was buying he was putting money into bet. He put $15,000 of his own money into bet, mind you. That is something that was listed in this information, as well as this better arriving, conversing, being at Emmanuel Clase's house. There's another example of this individual calling Emmanuel Clase during the game when he's supposed to be in the bullpen paying attention. It's actually against MLB and Cleveland Guardian policy to be on your phone at all during a game. So that's another just mind boggling thing that he got away with. But this is what went pretty viral because it is a text exchange of two gifts that are pretty popular. A man doing something with himself with toilet paper. I'm not going to explain that because of the YouTube algorithm, and just to keep everything PG and sensitive for those out there that need that, as well as Emmanuel Clase responding with a gif of a sad puppy dog face, even though the Guardians won that game. What happened in that situation was, despite Clase throwing the ball outside of the strike zone, a batter still chased it. So it was a strikeout. So they were upset that they didn't win the money on that one. It's absolutely absurd. I'm going to continue to use that sentence because the fact that they are texting back and forth phone calls in the dugout, or not the dugout, excuse me, the bullpen, and thought that they were going to get away with this long term, it just makes absolutely no common sense, especially for the amount of money that we're talking about here. The number that's been floating around on the internet a lot has been $12,000. And that $12,000 has to do with when Luis Ortiz was looped in on this whole situation. Basically, the first time they rigged a game, and Class A brought Ortiz in on the situation, Ortiz was paid 5,000, Class A was paid 5,000. Where the 12,000 comes from is the second pitch, and if you remember what the attorney said earlier in the video, the second pitch, because there was only two that Ortiz was involved in, was for 7,000 apiece. So that's where the $12,000 number is. But Emmanuel Clase has been doing this, according to the DOJ, since May 19th of 2023. The first game was Guardians versus Mets. That was the first time he started doing this whole scheme. So I'm assuming, especially with the example of Clase putting some of his own money in at one point, that he made a good chunk of change to us lay people, but still not the same amount that he would have made from his MLB contract. We're talking less than $1 million, but still absolutely not worth it in terms of being the best closer in baseball, the best closer in Guardians history. So you thought it was bad there. And if you remember, Luis Ortiz's attorney said that he was not guilty of any of these charges. And you're seeing some prime examples of stupidity and texting and phone calling, and where this all started, and thinking, okay, maybe Luis Ortiz is just being brought in on this, maybe because they're from the same country or whatnot. No, there's proof for Ortiz too in this indictment. There was a phone call. Not a phone call, excuse me, but there was no, it was a phone call. It was a text conversation between Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase after, of course, one of the rigged pitches went down, where they were talking about wire transferring some money to pay Ortiz for the whole deal. And Clase, for some god awful reason, thought it was a great idea to send a voice message, his own voice, talking about what he needed to do when this money got sent over, saying they're going to ask what this payment is for. Tell him this payment is for a horse. Payment for a horse. You got that?" Luis Ortiz responded, "Okay, perfect." So there's examples of Luis Ortiz being involved in this too. This situation is going to be one of the craziest sports storylines going on into 2026 with these court cases. I haven't even mentioned yet that Emmanuel Clase isn't in custody. It's assumed he's in the Dominican right now. He is out of the country, so it's assumed he's back home with his family right now. Um, I don't get where this thought process makes sense. I understand thinking and wanting to make more money, and there's examples of Emmanuel Clase sending this money back for some of his family members as well. But it's a drop in the bucket compared to what he was going to make, even on his contract with the Guardians just now. I believe in 2025 he was set to make 5 million and it staggers up from there if he was going to play for 2026. And that's not even talking about the fact that I thought the Guardians were going to trade him. That doesn't even matter in this situation because both Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clases, for all intensive purposes, are getting a lifetime ban from the league and are going to be used as an example as to why you shouldn't even attempt to do a prop bet on yourself and sway bets to make a little extra money. Another one that just popped into my head before I go to my final point of this video is the fact that there was at one time Emmanuel Clase withdrawing money from the same bank branch as Better One does later on for the same amount of money. Emmanuel Clase pulls $50,000 out, texts Better One that he's giving him 15,000. Better One then goes to that same bank branch and puts it in his own bank account, their own bank account, to then, of course, gamble with. It makes absolutely no sense why they thought that there was no chance of getting away with this. I it's mind-boggling, and I feel like this is only going to get way worse as more and more on this situation continues to come out as Class A goes into custody, as the court case ravels on, and we get to follow it day by day, just like any of these other court cases that are popular in history. I know I'm going to be glued to my seat to see what happens, even though I think the ending is pretty damn predictable. I know a big question on a lot of Guardians fans' minds too is if the 2024 playoff run, especially because Class A looked so bad in that playoff run, was involved with this. The court papers don't mention anything about the season of 2024. I don't know if that's because they thought they put enough in there and they didn't need to pile on every single example just for the indictment, and they'll bring that up later in court. I'm not a legal expert. I just read some court papers because I thought this whole situation was extremely, extremely interesting. But we'll see. I don't know if the playoff run's involved or not. I sure hope not, because that's going to be another big strike against credibility. Baseball, a league that is trying to desperately cling on to bringing in more fans and becoming more popular, becoming America's pastime yet again. There's one last little thing that Erik, my co-host, and I have talked about here on the page before, and I think it's interesting because it isn't being brought up a whole lot. And it is this company, this brand, this investment firm. It's not really a firm, but this investment platform called Finlete. I believe that's how you say it. It's spelled Finlete. Finlete. What this platform does is basically lets people invest in on future contracts of MLB, really any sports stars, but it tends to be a lot of minor league players trying to get some cash now. So basically, they sign a contract, they get, say, in Class A's example, $300,000 up front. Later on, investors might get a bigger percentage of that $300,000 because of him signing a bigger contract. So, say 300,000 now, 500,000 of his future contract goes to investors. Obviously, that is very volatile because you could have a situation like this where you invest in Class A because he's one of the best closers in the league and he is fixing his own games. So, I point this out to point out the fact that Class A was doing things to safeguard his pockets in between the 2024-2025 season when all of this was going on. And I believe the original goal of Clase's investment was to get $3 million, not $300,000. Don't quote me on that. I just remember reading that. It might have been a Reddit thread, so it might not be totally credible. But the fact that he was taking out what is basically a shady insurance policy on his own MLB contract and screwing over fans that are obviously going to invest in that contract is just another notch in the belt to be upset with both Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase because there's no regard for the people that would have been paying your bills completely just. It is going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out and how it turns into documentaries later on because this is going to be one of those stories that no matter where you're at in life, whether you have kids now, you're going to be telling your grandkids. Whether you don't have kids now, you're going to be telling your kids and your grandkids. You're going to be talking about this as a Cleveland sports fan, as a baseball fan for a long time. This is going to be up there with the Black Sox, the Pete Rose scandals, all the ref in the NBA that was betting on games behind the tape. I mean, this is going to go on and be a big part of sports history. Makes you think what's going to happen with prop bets and whatnot. I've heard that take in local media a bunch. The MLB made an agreement with the books already that prop bets on pitching speeds and the balls and strikes are only going to be capped at $200. So you can only place $200 worth of money on bets like that. Fans getting punished for player stupidity. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I don't know what a better answer is and what a better solution to this whole thing is other than continuously punishing, worrying about integrity, this is a whole mess, especially when you think about how these big sports books are in bed with these big billion-dollar, you know, NFL, the MLB, the NH, all of them. The sports books are sponsoring these leagues. It's it's going to be a very messy situation and it's only going to get worse before it gets better and I don't know what the better answer is. That's everything I have right now for the Luis Ortiz Emmanuel Clase situation. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I take this on home. We are going live from Muni Lot 2 p.m. this Sunday for Browns Ravens. Doing a pregame show. Come up, give us your take, give us your opinion. Come on air. It's a great time. We love doing these pregame shows, and especially at the Muni Lot. The Muni Lot's always a good time, whether the Browns are fantastic or god awful. And with that, we of course are also doing a giveaway. Any Browns or Cavs jersey of your choice. Subscribe to At the Office on YouTube and leave a comment. Winner will be chosen next week here on At the Office. So make sure you keep watching and checking in for what's going on with that. This situation is only going to be crazy and continue to get crazier and crazier. I will be glued in my seat. We will continue to give you the content on this as we see fit, as more news comes out. I'm Noah, one half of At the Office. And until next time, everybody have a great rest of your day. Peace.